In the darkest days of 1940, as Nazi Germany's shadow stretched across Europe, one voice echoed from a small island, a defiant roar against the storm. This is the story of Winston Churchill, but not the one you think you know. It's a story of a man haunted by his past, teetering on the brink of failure, who had to conquer the enemy within before he could ever hope to face the one at his door. Imagine London, the air thick with the acrid smell of smoke and fear. The Blitz is raging. Night after night, bombs rain down, turning homes into craters and streets into graveyards. In the quiet corridors of the war rooms, deep beneath the city, a man paces. Cigar smoke hangs heavy in the air, a constant cloud around his imposing figure. This is Churchill, the new Prime Minister, a man many in his own government didn't want, a man they called a warmonger, a political has-been. He'd inherited a disaster. The British Army was cornered at Dunkirk, a catastrophe waiting to happen. His Foreign Secretary, Lord Halifax, was whispering of a negotiated peace, a deal with the devil himself. To the world, Churchill projected unwavering confidence. His voice, gravelly and powerful, boomed from the radio, promising to fight on the beaches, to never surrender. But behind closed doors, the pressure was immense. He was wrestling with doubts that would have crushed a lesser man. To understand the giant of 1940, we have to look back at the failures that forged him. Go back to 1915, the First World War. Churchill, then a young and ambitious First Lord of the Admiralty, championed the Gallipoli campaign. It was meant to be a swift, decisive blow against the Ottoman Empire. Instead, it became a bloody stalemate, a slaughterhouse that cost the Allies over 250,000 casualties. The blame fell squarely on his shoulders. He was demoted, disgraced, his political career seemingly in ruins. The word Gallipoli became a poisoned dart, a constant reminder of his greatest failure. This wasn't just a political setback, it was a personal crucible. He even went to fight in the trenches in France, seeking redemption in the very mud and blood he had, in part, sent others to. He spent years in the political wilderness, his warnings about the rise of Hitler dismissed as the ramblings of an old man obsessed with war. He wrote, he painted, he drank, all while watching the world slide toward an abyss he had foreseen. When he finally took power in May 1940, he wasn't just fighting Hitler, he was fighting the ghost of Gallipoli. He was fighting his own reputation. Every decision was shadowed by the memory of that past disaster. Could he be trusted? Would he lead Britain into another bloodbath? This internal battle reached its climax in the final days of May 1940. The situation was beyond grim. The French were collapsing. The British Expeditionary Force was trapped. In the War Cabinet, the pressure to negotiate with Mussolini as an intermediary to Hitler was suffocating. Halifax, a man of principle and great influence, argued passionately that a Britain with its army destroyed would have no bargaining power. It was better, he argued, to explore peace terms now, while they still had something to offer. It was the logical, the sensible, the pragmatic choice. For 3 agonizing days, the debate raged. Churchill listened. He let his opponents have their say. He felt the weight of their arguments, the chilling logic of surrender. This was his moment of truth. Was he the reckless gambler of Gallipoli, or the savior of his nation? He was exhausted, isolated, the fate of the free world resting on his shoulders. What would you do? Face the might of the Nazi war machine alone, or accept a deal that might save lives but cost your nation its soul? And then he made his move. But it wasn't a thundering speech to the cabinet. It was something far more subtle and far more brilliant. He convened a meeting not of his inner circle, but of the wider 25-member outer cabinet. These were the ministers who weren't in the thick of the daily strategic arguments. He laid out the situation in stark, unvarnished terms. He explained the Dunkirk crisis. He explained the arguments for negotiation. He did not command them. He did not order them. He simply spoke from the heart. He told them he was confident the nation would fight on, even if it meant being alone. He spoke of the moral bankruptcy of negotiating with that man. And then he watched. As he finished speaking, the room, which had been tense and silent, erupted. Ministers, men who had doubted him for years, were on their feet, shouting their support, banging on the table. They weren't just agreeing with him, they were buoying him, lifting him up. In that moment, Churchill knew he had his answer. The will of the political class was the will of the people. They would not surrender. Armed with this mandate, he returned to the War Cabinet and declared the matter settled. There would be no negotiations. There would be only war. That decision unleashed the miracle of Dunkirk, the evacuation of over 338,000 soldiers. It solidified his leadership and set the course for the next 5 years of brutal, bloody, but ultimately victorious conflict. His radio speeches became the lifeblood of a nation. His words a weapon as powerful as any bomb or battleship. He became the bulldog, the icon, the very embodiment of British defiance. But here is where the story takes its most surprising turn. The voice that saved a nation, the man who stood against tyranny, wasn't just a product of his convictions. He was also a master of technology, a pioneer of a new kind of communication. And this is the secret that has been hiding in plain sight for decades. Many of Churchill's most famous, most stirring radio broadcasts, the ones that millions of Britons huddled around their radios to hear, the ones that gave them the strength to endure the Blitz, were not delivered by Churchill himself. Think about that. In the heat of the moment, with the nation's morale on the line, the voice they heard was often that of a BBC actor named Norman Shelley. Why? The reasons were practical. Churchill was an old man, working grueling hours. Rushing to a BBC studio for a live broadcast in the middle of a war was not always feasible. More importantly, he was a perfectionist. He would labor over his speeches, rewriting them endlessly. He wanted every word to land with maximum impact. Recording them for broadcast was a complex process. So, a system was devised. Churchill would record his speeches. But if he was unavailable, or the recording wasn't perfect, the BBC would use their secret weapon, Norman Shelley. Shelley was a vocal mimic of uncanny ability. He had studied Churchill's cadence, his pauses, his distinctive lisp. He could reproduce the Prime Minister's voice so flawlessly that almost no one could tell the difference. Not even, it was said, members of Churchill's own cabinet. This wasn't a deception meant to fool the public in a malicious way. It was a strategic tool of war. The priority was the message. The priority was ensuring that Churchill's defiant words reached the people, undiluted and on time, to galvanize their spirit. The voice was the weapon, and it didn't matter who pulled the trigger, as long as the shot hit its mark. The man who projected an image of simple, unshakable, bulldog strength was, in reality, a shrewd media manipulator, using the most advanced techniques of his time to wage a psychological war. So the next time you hear a recording of Churchill vowing to fight on the beaches, listen closely. You might be hearing the voice that defied a tyrant. Or you might be hearing the voice of an actor, a hidden hero who, in his own way, helped win the war. The legend and the reality are intertwined, reminding us that in times of total war, even the truth can become a weapon. The voice of defiance was not just one man, but a carefully constructed symbol. an idea broadcast to the world, proving that sometimes the most powerful force on earth is a story well told. Thank you for watching. If you found this hidden history as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that change the way you see the past. See you next time.